I've worked for the BBC for 20 years, and I specialised in doing investigations for a programme called Panorama, which is BBC Panorama, which I do. I'm a freelancer for now, but I was staff there doing that for an awful long time. So I used to do investigations, and obviously if you start doing investigations, that naturally begins to take you to a certain area of the world, I'm afraid. So I spent a lot of time in Africa, which is why I wrote a book about Africa and for African too. So Africa was the place that I gradually fell in love with.
Did you ever go to Zimbabwe?
Do you know what? I knew you were going to ask me this, and this is quite embarrassing because out of all the countries that I mentioned in my book, Zimbabwe is the one that I haven't been to. If you can help me get there, that'd be great, because I still want, funnily enough, I want to go there in the next couple of months and get an interview with Mugabe, and I want to hear the truth about Matabeleland and about one or two other seismic moments in history. And now's the moment for him to, obviously he'll be interested in his legacy still, but now's the moment for him to say, I'm not far off my grave. I think there's some honesty for the history books. And he's quite a purist in the sense that, as you know, academically, thoughtful, very clever man. You'd think in terms of his legacy, he might actually want to tell you the truth. He will try and justify it, but he might be more open now.
But is it different from President Mnangagwa, in any way? How different is that? Yeah.
Well, to me, it's difficult for me to say because I've not been there since he was put under house arrest. But the problem is it's the same machinery, isn't it? You change the figurehead. So, it's that old debate about, is it a revolution? Is it a coup? Is it a palace coup? And to me, it seems like a palace coup. You move one out of the way and the next one comes in. But that man, he was the eminence grise, if you like, the person who'd been standing next to Mugabe throughout an awful lot of this. And what amazes me is that he seems to have got such a good press in Zimbabwe since this has happened. I don't see people saying, we have a real problem because you were there all the way through this. You were there in Matabeleland. You helped fix the elections in 2008. Anyway.
But so when you look at what is happening in Zimbabwe right now, where's the country going?
Hopefully the country, well, it's open for business, as we know, isn't it? So, that's got to be a healthy thing. The question then is about how the profits from that you have to keep them in Zimbabwe. They cannot be allowed to dissipate or disappear to China and to America and to Europe, So there has to be an awful lot more done to make sure that it's fairly spread throughout the population, not just towards Mugabe's old cronies who are the ones who are in power. But I've got to say there's got to be some hope. It's got to be a good thing that you have elections in July or August, and that this is the opportunity, and that hopefully young people will get together and say, this is the chance of a lifetime, the chance of the generation, and this is the time for change. It's got to happen.
Indications of that the British are actually sort of like, warming up to Mnangagwa. Is there any deal there?
I don't think there will be a deal. I think the British would go into any country realistically that is saying we are changing the way that we behave and we're becoming more democratic. The British will go in there and, yes, they'll be looking for trade deals, but they'll also be interested in exercising some diplomacy to make Zimbabwe come out of this a better place. I'm quite sort of sympathetic normally to diplomacy, not just British, but a lot of diplomacy. The idea they'll be in there to win some favour and to win some trade deals, but also to make sure, for instance, the elections are run fairly. They'll be interested in that.
And the British, the land issue and all those kind of things, it's still a complication, right?
Still a complication. It's the way you will know more about the figures in terms of how much the British took and how little was left to the indigenous population. It's still an issue. But there are ways of redistributing land as long as the people who are giving it back, and this hasn't happened in the past, are properly compensated, So as long as they're compensated properly, fair enough. But you can't have Mugabe or his successor now going in and seizing land without any compensation, killing the inhabitants, terrorising whoever worked on the farms. And you will know better than me, quite a number of those farms have fallen into disrepair. They're not as productive as they once were. So there's a way of doing this. You'd think a really mature country would say, we're going to do this peacefully and we're going to do this in a way which continues the productivity. So we're going to take the former white owners, we're going to compensate you. We'd love you to stay, though, and tell us how we can continue producing crops at such a rate as you did. You're going to be involved. Now, that would be a mature way of behaving, a mature democracy.
Now, in terms of elections, are they going to be free, fair, incredible, like what President Mnangagwa was saying?
It seems to me that he knows the world's watching. I think it'll be subtle, the manipulation. But everybody I've spoken to on the ground there says, is it conceivable that Mnangagwa won't win? No, it's not conceivable. He will win. Part of that is because the opposition is in, it's not a lot of time to organise. They don't have the roots there that are built up over generations, over decades, where people have, they're not used to exercising opposition power. They're not used to understanding how you go out campaigning, getting things together, putting your message out, all those things which are lost when you have an authoritarian regime like Mugabe. So in short, is it going to be free and fair elections? I imagine it'll be much closer to a free and fair election than has been the case since 1980.
So the opposition really must forget about winning?
No, I don't think so. And I think that it's not really. But part of this, this is going to sound odd. It's not always about actually winning. If they put up a very good performance and get a very high percentage, then what would happen again in a mature democracy is that the winner would say, okay, you were so close, we can't do something that's so unpopular that it doesn't suit the 40% who voted for the opposition. Do you see that we have to try and maybe it was so close that we have some shared power, maybe we take some of your candidates and give them minor ministerial jobs, maybe in the cabinet. I mean, wouldn't that be a fantastically thoughtful way forward and a mature way forward to say the results was close enough that we're going to have some degree of power sharing? But I can't really see that happening.